Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome to the Luminary Podcast. I am your host, Annie motherfucking Perry. Welcome, beautiful beings of divine light, starseeds, light workers, luminaries from all across the universe. So excited, as always, to be back here with you again, especially because I already recorded this episode, and unfortunately, it ended up having microphone distortion. So here we are again, and everything happens for divine reasonings. You know, you've heard me say it a million times before. I truly believe that the reason the episode I recorded last week had microphone distortion, and even though I seriously considered just posting it with the distortion, having all of you listen to it with a little click, click, click in the background, no, I'm not that unkind, but I truly believe that it happened because there were so many other things that occurred last week as far as Ascension. We've got leap year energetics going on right now, just major energy. And I believe that a lot of those things wanted to come through in this episode and as a part of what I'm going to teach you today. So we need to talk, okay? Rest in peace to February. And I told my guides, as I sat down to record this episode for the second time, I said, I feel like I'm phoning it in from my hospital bed, and I am the victim of a plane crash that occurred in February, which did not literally happen, but ascension-wise, I feel like that is exactly what happened. Everything hurts. There were tears. There were many tears. There were many moments when I was like, I'm definitely dying. And my guides kept assuring me that you are not dying. You were just going through a chrysalis, and then all of a sudden you're just going to explode out of it. And yes, everything in the physical body hurts right now. And the energetics really started to amp up right when it hit Pisces season. Pisces is the most spiritual sign. We're right in the middle of Pisces season. We are rapidly approaching Aries season. It's March. We are already inside of the energy for eclipse season. There's going to be a lunar eclipse at the end of March. There's going to be one of the most important total solar eclipses on April 8th of 2024. This is the midway point. We have made it to the midway point of the 7-year Ascension acceleration cycle. Congratulations, you get a medal. I will mail you your certificate of completion. Like, you did it. I feel like I'm in a hospital bed right now because of how much pain my physical body is in as we go through this quantum leap year energetic experience, which I was not prepared for. And I was not prepared because I did not ask the right questions. Okay, channeling and getting quantum information is all about asking the right questions. And I did not ask any questions about leap year energetics. Even though I knew that this was going to be a leap year, I thought, okay, that's cool. You get an extra day of the month. Like, what's it to ya? Oh my, I have never been so off the mark. I was way off the mark to not ask about leap year energetics, and that is why I am the one who feels like they are in a hospital bed right now. So the way that the energy started out, and I've been talking about it daily on my Instagram stories. You can find me there pretty much every single day at I Am the Wellspring. I am usually posting energetic and ascension updates and teaching and talking about courses and programs. And of course, there's usually a little bit of mouthing off and saying things that get me kicked out of moon circles. That's okay. You're welcome to join me anytime. But I've been talking about it since the beginning of February that we went through this disconnection process as part of a chrysalis program. So a chrysalis program is exactly what it sounds like. You're the caterpillar and you go into the chrysalis and into the cocoon and you literally start to dissolve. Everything disconnects. So during the first part of February, we were feeling very disconnected, very uninterested, very unmotivated, and really feeling this emptying out of the heart chakra. At one point, I woke up And I kind of had a little freak out moment. Okay, let's just be real. There were a few freak out moments, and I will be totally honest and tell you about all of them that happened to me in February. Just to be totally real, okay? I woke up one day, and this was just during the disconnection process, right? What my guides call the chrysalis. Everything's disconnecting, you're dissolving, and it's really occurring for these upper chakras that I discussed on the previous podcast episode. So I woke up in the morning, and it was like my chest was hollow. And I was like, oh my God, I don't feel connected to anything. And I was like reaching out for my guys. I was like, oh my God, I can't feel anything. Like where is the energy? I feel hollow. I feel empty. I feel disconnected. Am I depressed? Like, what is happening? You know, it's like the human mind just goes straight to like, oh God, is it the anxiety and depression are back? Except I couldn't really feel anything. I could not feel anything. I didn't actually feel depressed or anxious. I didn't feel the usual buzz of energy moving through, especially the heart chakra. My chest just felt completely hollowed out, like there was nothing in there. I mean, it was one of the strangest experiences, especially as someone who regularly feels and attunes into their energy centers all throughout the day. And so my guide's like, okay, you're not dead, you're not dying, everything is fine, it's just a disconnection process. And so what happened through the field, and many of you may have felt this, you may have been in a wave that was earlier than the one that I was in, so it may have happened to you a couple months ago, and you may be in a wave that is coming through next month, or the month after, or in a year from now. You're always a part of a wave, a group that's moving at the same consciousness level as you. There's no wrong place to be, you're always exactly where you need to be, and we have to move in waves, because otherwise it would be a tsunami and it would destroy the whole planet. Okay, so we're in waves. So for like 2 days, I wander around and I'm just so disconnected, not interested. I don't feel any energy in my heart chakra. And it was kind of a place of neutrality, but it wasn't necessarily like divine neutrality. It didn't feel like that blissful 0 point. It just felt like all of my little connectors to everything that I love and find beautiful, and all of my relationships especially, I just felt like nothing. I just felt nothing towards them. And so we were disconnected from everything because a lot of our connections were created out of lower frequencies, especially when it comes to relationships. And the closer the relationship, or the longer the relationship, the higher the probability that that relationship actually had what we would call distortions or corruption in the energy. And that doesn't make it bad, and it doesn't make it wrong. It just means that it's got to be alchemized. That's it. So the closer the relationship, the longer the relationship, you may have felt, very uninterested and disconnected from family, people who are immediately related to you, your parents who have been connected to you for the longest, or it could be long-term friendships. And then, of course, somewhat disconnected to things that you have loved for a long time that have really brought you some sort of positive feeling, or has even become an obligation to you. So a lot of you guys were reporting to me feeling totally disconnected to your job. Like, what am I even doing here? I don't feel connected to any of the work or anything that I'm creating or producing, but I also don't feel in this moment like I know what I want to do. It was almost kind of listless. And so the guidance was really just hang in there. Like, we're working on it. Everything has to be disconnected so that a new system can be implemented, right? If you were going to put new hardware or new software inside of your computer, well, the old one has to get erased. The old thing has to get removed. And so this was a very big deal in the field, and it was almost like a heart transplant. There was a lot of things that happened in the field and in society and communities and in countries around the world that were not so positive because of this disconnection that had to happen in order for the new programs to be reset. If it's lasting longer than a few days for you, you just have to hang in there. It just means that there were significant connections that you'd made that have to be disconnected, removed, and new ones will be put in place, and you will start to feel them. It's almost like we are regrowing tissue inside of our body. So it's a growth process. It is not an overnight, I'm suddenly so connected to Gardening, it's the only thing I can think about. It's not going to be like that. It's going to be a slow growth process. And these new connections are going to be so authentic. They're going to be so genuine. They're going to be so heart-based. That frequency is going to be so high. So really, really pay attention to the people, especially that you meet and that you connect with from here on out. So then we get to the end of February, the last week of February, and this is when everything just exploded. This is when I felt like I was in a plane that was crashing and I was ejected from the plane and I rolled still attached to the seat, and there may have been a little bit of screaming. There may have been a lot of crying. It was the physical activations moving through my body. Everything hurts. I think even one of you reached out to me and said, everything hurts from my toes to the top of my head. And this is so true. It really feels like you were in some sort of like car accident, train crash, plane crash. The pain was centralized in the mouth of God chakra for me for several days. There were days when I was completely incapacitated. I couldn't get up. I could barely feed myself. So the mouth of God is that chakra that is just above the base of your skull, and it's inside of the skull. So it's not external at all. It's slightly inside of the skull, and it is above where the neck connects to the skull. And so I had this burning migraine sensation. It felt like someone was ripping my head open and ripping my head off of my body at the same time. And it lasted, like this excruciating pain lasted for about 2 days straight. And then it was on and off from there. I was simultaneously having these fevers come over my body that would come and go. And that's fire energy, just burning old things, old frequencies out of the body. The head and neck and eye pain and shoulder pain and the muscle pain was excruciating. Like that's the only word that I can come up with. It was some of the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. I'm also even still today experiencing muscle tightness that feels like I pulled a muscle, whereas I did not pull a muscle. I didn't do anything that would have pulled a muscle. It's just part of this activation that's moving through the heart, the throat, the mouth of God, the third eye, and the crown center. And so everything hurts in those areas. And at one point, I was laying on my bed, and the mouth of God chakra was just, it felt like it was on fire. And I start crying, and when you're crying and you already have a headache, it just makes everything worse. But I'm crying, sobbing in my bed, telling my spirit guides that I'm 100% sure that it's a tumor, that I have a tumor in my head, that I'm dying, that this is the end. And they're like, it's not a tumor, you're not dying. We've already told you like 8 times what's going on. You just have to hang in there. And thankfully they were able to bring some pain relief, but it was just at a level where every time they would bring pain relief, it would last for a few hours, and then it would just come back immediately with this vengeance. At least to me, it felt like it was a vengeance, even though I know it's part of the light body activation. That's truly what it is. The mouth of God chakra has to be fully opened. It is a gateway chakra. You're not necessarily radiating energy out through the mouth of God the way that you are the pineal gland and the third eye. You are opening a gateway that allows the Kundalini energy at the base of your spine to pass seamlessly through your spinal column, through the 33 solar discs, through the mouth of God, passing through the pineal gland, and ultimately opening up the 1,000-petaled lotus at your crown center, fully activating the crown chakra. That's part of the light body activation. That is part of what we are working towards. And as we have been informed by the Pleiadians, this light body activation process has to be continuously worked on ASAP. We're overdue. We're slightly behind schedule. And what they told us on my interview with the Pleiadian Council of Light is that the bodies we are in right now, the chemical body, it will not be a viable body 100 years from now. So activating your light body and all of this process that we're going through, even though right now it's very painful, is absolutely essential. And I've created a light body activation. You can get that on wellspringofficial.com. It's a custom activation that I create, that I send to you, and you're able to listen to it forever, for however long the devices will work on this planet. You can listen to it again and again, because the light body activation process is not a one and done. If there's someone that tells you, like, I have fully activated my light body, like, I want to see you glowing. I want to see your glowing skin, because it glows. I've seen it. The Pleiadians wear the 4th density light body, and it literally glows. It's luminous. So it is a process. It's not a one and done. You can get support for that on wellspringofficial.com. Leap year energetics. So why is this so intense right now? And this, especially with the physical body, we have not experienced this kind of physical body pain since 2020, which was the last leap year. And if you start to look at all of the leap years, it's 2012, the official end of 3rd density on our planet, 2016, 2020, 2024, and of course 2028 will be the end of the 7-year ascension acceleration cycle. They will not know until around 2026 or 2027 if they will initiate and put forward a plan for another ascension acceleration cycle. I wouldn't put it past them. I would say that it's probably going to be something more like a 10-year plan that will last from 2028 to 2038 and will have many different components to it, but we are in this for the long haul. You're never going to stop hearing about ascension. You're never going to stop hearing about different symptoms. You're never going to stop being inside of a chemical body that's literally in the middle of a metamorphosis into a 4th density light body. It's very much worth taking the time to sit down and ask yourself, what happened in my life in 2012, 2016, 2020? Obviously, 2020 was a very big year for all of us. For me, as I started to look at the leap year energetics, I realized, okay, I'm feeling extremely sick this year. Physically, the ascension symptoms have just manifested in a way that was debilitating for me. And actually in 2020, which was the start of my spiritual awakening, I got very sick in Thailand. I've told this story on my really early episodes. I got very sick in Thailand. I thought I was going to die. There was this being of light who came into my hotel room. I was dying alone in a hotel room in Chiang Mai, Thailand. And I had this illness. It was a bacterial infection. The Thai doctors didn't know what it was. And I didn't want to be inside of a Thai hospital. So I went back to my hotel room to die in luxurious peace. And there's being of light came into my room. And at the time, I was so new to spirituality that I thought it was Jesus. I was like, there could be no other being that's so loving, that's so luminous, coming to me at this time when I feel like I'm dying and my fever was like 105, 106, something like that. And I could feel the spirit of my grandmother. She was like outside of the window, kind of like waiting, like they had told her to wait outside. And this being of light asked me, like, do you want to leave now? And I will never forget, ever in my life, contemplating if I wanted to step out of my body and I was done, or if I wanted to keep going. And it's so true what they say. You know when it's actually your time. You know when it's a yes. And I knew at that time that it was a no. And I said, no, I want to go back and see my family one more time. You can have me after that. I really thought that was how it was. I thought that's how it was. Like you were trying to make a bargain. And the being was actually not Jesus. It was my own spirit team. And they knew what I was going to say. But it was all part of the unfolding of what would become my spiritual awakening in 2020. And I went through that really, really severe sickness that also happened in February of 2020. The dates of the illness did not necessarily align, but it is more about the leap year energetics. I would say in 2020, I had so much density inside of my body, such a long way to go to wake up and remember the truth of who I am, that the illness was much more physical and it was longer lasting. I was sick for about 2 weeks and had to get back to the United States before they closed down all of the borders. And that illness really left a mark on me. Like I can still feel almost like there's internal scarring from that illness. All right, so some notes going forward for the rest of the year. Number 1 is you can expect that there's still going to be pain, especially in the head area, as these 3 chakras located in the head are activated. You can expect that there will still be a lot of muscle pain, especially in the shoulders, the neck, and the upper back area. You can expect that there will be tingles, vibrations, energy, feeling like it's moving through your chest. These are all heart chakra clearings and activations. Not all heart chakra activations feel lovey-dovey and ooey-gooey. Some of them feel like you are having a heart attack. So you need to be in tune with yourself. You need to go to the doctor when you feel that you need to go to the doctor. And for me, sometimes it feels like palpitations, or like I can't get a breath down, or it feels like my chest is splitting open. It doesn't necessarily interact with my physical heart. And so that's how I can feel that it's coming from the center of my chest, and it's radiating from the spinal column through the center of the chest. So you might have a lot of feelings that feel similar to having heart problems. So go to your doctor, get checked out. It is not impossible that your Ascension symptoms can manifest as physical illness. It's actually highly probable. So there is that component of using your own discernment and, of course, always playing it safe. And as I have to tell you, my lawyer wants me to tell you that this is not medical advice. This is just what I would do personally. All right, and the second thing for 2024 going forward, Kundalini energy and activations. Suddenly, sex sounds like the really healthy thing that you should be doing. You might be feeling drawn to like revitalize your sexuality, to rethink it, to explore it. Suddenly you might be drawn to try new things with your partner. All of a sudden your partner is looking like a snack. All of a sudden you feel like this is something that you want to be doing every single day. And it is so incredibly healthy for your energy. I would say that in general on Earth, we're going to be having a lot more sex on this planet, because when you activate the Kundalini energy, sex is just one of the ways that that energy can move up the spinal column. So each time you have an orgasm, and I think we've all had like various different orgasms, and some that felt like kind of and then some that are like, oh my God, I actually like saw stars in my head, you know, I feel like my head exploded, even though it's happening in a totally different part of your body. And what that is little bits of that Kundalini energy managing to break out of its cocoon at the base of your spine and to shoot up the spinal column where it connects with the crown center. And that is that orgasmic feeling. If you can even draw up in your mind right now, like the most intense, amazing orgasm you've ever had, and that like euphoric feeling afterwards, the afterglow, that is the consistent feeling in fourth density. That's why they're all so happy. That's why the Pleiadians are so happy. They live in that euphoric state. They live in a state of ecstatic bliss. And every time I talk about sex to spiritual guides, galactics, they're always like, this is the one thing we wish we could talk to you guys about more. But because there is such a taboo on sex and sexuality for a lot of the planet, it's not well received, even though it's this essential part of your energy clearing and energetic maintenance, the programs that have been built into you, and it's supposed to be healthy. It's supposed to be like working out every day. It's supposed to have all of these healthy benefits for you, but there is so much distortion around it and so much shame around being inside of these bodies and a disconnection from these bodies. And so truly that connection to the body has to be, the old one has to be eliminated, right? We talked about that at the beginning. connections. You're getting disconnected from everything that was connected in a low frequency. And then a new high frequency connection has to be made. And then that connection has to grow. It has to be nurtured. It's a relationship. So if you're not feeling the Kundalini energy and activation and this renewed renaissance of sexuality right now, you might be part of the wave that is still reconnecting to the physical body, getting comfortable with it again, and then you're going to be a part of the next wave that goes through the Kundalini sexual renaissance. That's what I'm going to call it, sexual renaissance. I like that. I actually have a lot more to say and tell y'all about that, but I'm going to do it on a different podcast episode. So I'm just going to wrap it up with, if you're feeling frisky, go find your partner. Go help yourself. You probably know how to do it best anyway. Ladies, I'm looking at you. You look gorgeous and you smell nice. All right, let's move on. So I want to tell you today the story of the real fallen angels. And I want to tell it to you how I learned this part of our evolutionary consciousness process. There is so much that has happened since October of 2023. It's March now. And I didn't get to tell you guys all of these different stories, even though I've been talking about different aspects of them in my classes and on my Instagram account. So to tell you the full story, we have to backtrack a little bit back into October of 2023. I received this incredible activation from one of my mentors, and it was truly a life-changing moment for me. I love activations. I love to perform them. I love to receive them. We are just this continuously unfolding geometric light of the universe. There is no end to us, so you can activate and activate and activate to infinity. And you'll want to listen to this episode before you listen to the next episode that Alicia and I are going to do together, because the information flows through both of them. So I will also put a little heads up on that upcoming episode. Alicia's going to be back on the podcast a few more times with me. It's really exciting. And this story of fallen angels has to be understood before you can fully grasp why certain things have happened on this planet, especially when it comes to lost civilizations like Lemuria, Atlantis, Egypt, Greece. So I received this activation from one of my mentors, and I'm going to tell you everything that I saw inside of the activation on its own podcast, because I went into different realms, dimensions. I don't even know what to call them at this point, and I saw so many things that are just going to blow your mind. But this story this is like what happened after I received that activation. So I wake up from the activation, literally face down on the ground in my office. No idea how I got there. I wake up, I'm laughing hysterically. Like, it's the most joyful, happiest laughter that I have ever had in my entire life. And I felt that ecstatic bliss feeling. And shortly after that activation, I started to hear this voice in my head that sounded like my own head voice, but it was not my own thoughts. And they kept saying, "Star Command, Star Command, Star Command." And I was like, okay. I mean, I get weird things all the time. I'm connected with a lot of different galactics, but the only ships I'd really been on at that point were all GFL ships. And I don't work for the GFL. I always want to tell people that there are other starseeds who are sent here directly by the GFL, and I'm not one of them. You're going to find out who sent me in just a moment here. But I keep hearing this phrase over and over and over in my head, Star Command, Star Command, Star Command. Sometimes my mind just attaches on to a name or a word or a phrase or a little bit of music, and it just repeats it over and over and over in my head. My cognition is very fast. It's very multifaceted. I can listen to someone talking and teaching me about something, and I can read something else and absorb both of the information at the same time. So at any given moment, there's just a lot going on in my head. So someone saying Star Command over and over in my head is not necessarily standing out compared to all of the other things that I'm doing on any given day. And finally, the voice gets a little bit louder. So it's starting to come through the general noise of my own mind. And it says, report to Galactic Command, report to Galactic Command. And I'm like, well, this is starting to sound a little bit important. This is starting to sound like I didn't watch a bunch of Star Wars and pick up a phrase called Star Command. So it's starting to sound like it actually means something, like there's somewhere I'm supposed to be. And I started to get that feeling again. This is the same feeling I had during my spiritual awakening, during my third eye opening, during my galactic awakening. And it's this feeling of like, there was something I'm supposed to do. There's something I'm supposed to remember. There's somewhere that I'm supposed to be. Like, what is it? And it's almost like it's moving from the back of your mind forward, and you're trying to grab it and you're trying to pull it to the front of your mind, trying to remember that thing that you were supposed to remember. And this voice wakes me up at 3 o'clock in the morning, as usual, and it's very strong. And it's report to Galactic Command. And at that point, I'm like, I don't know where I'm going. There's so many different beings that I talk to. Like, I just go, okay, I'm reporting to Galactic Command. And I leave my body immediately. I am moving in my astral body faster than the speed of light, faster than thought, just at this very simple intention of, okay, I'm reporting to Galactic Command. Where do you need me? Like, which one? And I'm leaving my body faster than the speed of light. I am on a ship. This is a second Arcturian ship. There are 2 main Arcturian ships that work with Earth. And the first one is called the Athena. The Athena is pretty infamous. A lot of people know about the Athena. A lot of people work with the Arcturians on the Athena. But the second one is further away. It's much closer to Arcturus and to some of their planets and their stargates. And all of a sudden, I'm in my astral body and I'm on this ship and I'm walking through the hallways. And I'm like, I know this place. Like, I know this place like the back of my hand. This place is more familiar to me than my own home. It's more familiar to me than my childhood home. And I just move effortlessly through the ship, knowing exactly where I'm going. Whereas my ego is like, we've never been here before. I don't know what's going on. Another strange thing is happening. We're just gonna shut up and ride shotgun. I walk into this council room, and there's, 8 blue Arcturians. These are Arcturians that I had met before at that point, and they had always visited me. They had always come to my home. As strange as that sounds, they had always projected into my home. They had always come to me in different meditations. I had never gone all the way directly back to them. And so these 8 blue Arcturians are sitting around this table, and at the center of the table is almost like this hologram, and it's a projection of Thrace. Thrace has been my main spiritual guide since I started my awakening 4 years ago. And he's always presented as this divine masculine being. He looks humanoid. He looks like he is older, like in his 70s. And I know that that's a projection, but I never knew what was underneath it. I never actually saw what was beyond it. And part of that is because I'm very comfortable with a humanoid version of him. But this hologram is at the center of this table, and it's like it starts to flicker and it starts to dissolve. And he's smiling at me. And I'm like, I know that you're real, and I also know that you're not real because you're part of me. You're a projection of me, but you're also your own energy at some future distant time point space of consciousness, of my own consciousness. And as Thrace starts to dissolve, I realize that the projection behind him had always been these 8 blue Arcturians. And this wave of quantum information starts to download into me instantly. This understanding that this Arcturian council had been there through so many of my lifetimes, but very specifically for this lifetime, that they had been a part of the council that approved me to come back for this mission, that they had been behind this podcast specifically, that they were behind so many different little experiences throughout my life, from the kind of skincare that I use is suggested by them as what is most aligned for my DNA. The type of car that I drive was subliminally suggested by them because the front of my car looks like the front of an Arcturian ship. I'm not kidding you. All of these little tiny nuances through my whole entire life. And I saw these blue beings in my childhood home and around me at all of these different points through my childhood and through my early adult years, in many different moments when I would pray and ask, different etheric beings to please help me, that I had thought these were different angelic beings, and they are in a different dimensional understanding, and at the same time they also are these blue Arcturians helping and supporting me every single day of my life. And I started to feel this tremendous wave of unconditional love just radiating from them through my astral body. And as the soul cosmic memory started to activate and be understood by me, I can feel their joy. I can feel their love. And all they say to me is, "Welcome back to Galactic Command." The ship that they reside on is called the Lightbringer. And that's my home ship. That's my sending ship. There's so many parts of me that have always known this. And yet when you see the puzzle put together so flawlessly in front of you and you're having that visceral astral experience standing on their ship, feeling their love radiate towards you, feeling all of your memory come back to you, you no longer guess, you no longer wonder, you no longer doubt, you know. It's your memory. It's your memory being restored. And in so many ways, we are these beings who have amnesia, who have forgotten the truth of who we are, and each one of us has a different truth. There is a different place that you are connected to. There is a different species that you are connected to, and I know I'm speaking to a very highly galactic community because I am so highly galactic and so connected to that part of myself due to the mission that I'm on in this lifetime. And we attract what we are. So many of you might feel this really deep resonance and think, I think I'm connected to that ship too. Or when I hear you say the word Athena, it sounds like this light code radiating through me. There's something that I'm trying to remember about it. Or when I hear you say GFL, I feel like I'm supposed to reconnect with them. Like there was something that I was supposed to say to them. There was some connection that was supposed to be remade during this lifetime. Oh yeah, it's all coming back. So after I'm reunited with my Arcturian council family, and they often call themselves the 9D Council, the Council of 8, the Council of Light, the Arcturian Council. There's only so many names that they can come up with to differentiate the fact that these are all councils of light. Just depends on who you want to talk to. But they start to download all of this additional quantum information about the soul's journey, and at the same time they are creating and collaborating with me, right? Everything in the quantum happens all at once. There were not very many things that were linear about this process. It's all happening at once. And they start to download all of this information, the beginning of a soul, how a soul is formed, how it receives either the breath of God or the gaze of God, how it has its first moments of experiencing self-awareness, how it chooses its own universe, a soul song and universal song colliding, and soul family and star family colliding, the etheric realm colliding with planetary realms, all the way through the most dense and serious and difficult lifetimes, through the Ascension process, through the angelic process, through the entire reconnection with Source. And all of that quantum information that they downloaded, it's literally over 8 hours worth of information that downloaded in an instant, would become the course that I taught in December called Activate, Illuminate, a spiritual awakening master course. and all of it is channeled from the Arcturians. But one of the pieces that they and I agreed that I would teach on this podcast is the story of the fallen angels and who the real fallen angels are, in order to help you understand yourself and why you are going through this ascension process. During my childhood, I was taught all sorts of different religious stories. And one of the ones that intrigued me the most was the story of angels. Anything that had to do with angels, I was immediately drawn to. And yet, when you actually read the Christian Bible, there's not very much said about it at all. In fact, a lot of what they tell you is interpretation, their interpretation of what they believe certain obscure texts are talking about. But in general, the story goes like this. Once upon a time, a long, long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away. No, I'm kidding. Once upon a time, before there were humans, there was God, a man in the sky, a man on a shelf in the sky, and God created all of these angels because he wanted somebody to worship him. I don't even know if I can tell this story with a straight face. Okay, so he made all of these angels because he wanted someone to worship them, to worship him, can only be a him, right? And so with the first batch of angels that he creates, he gives them free will. And he's like, I want you to choose me, okay? It's a relationship. I want you to choose me. I don't know why my version of the Bible God sounds like Donald Trump. I want you to choose me. Okay, so that's his first batch. So they have free will. And, eventually, after some time, one of them, bad boy Lucifer, he's probably got like tattoos or something, and, and a lip piercing. And he's like, no, I don't want to anymore. I don't like you. I think I'm better than you. And so the way that they tell it is like he wanted to be better than God, so he got all of these other bad boy angels on his side, and he had a rebellion, and there was a war, there was a skirmish, and, because in the etheric realm, when you're made entirely of spirit and energy, you definitely have weapons, wink, wink. So they have this battle, and then God is like, ugh, and he, throws them, casts them out of heaven, and they fall down somewhere, because heaven is up. Heaven is up, and hell is down. And so they fall down, and they go to hell, and hell is just this awful, horrible place. And so he makes another batch of angels. He's like, you know what? That was a bad batch. Let's make another one. And so it makes another batch, and all of these angels do not have free will. They have no choice. You love me or nah. Like, there is no other choice. You just have to love me. And the warning to the little kids that they're telling these stories to is, if you're bad, you got to go live with the bad fallen angels in hell, and they're not so pretty anymore. They probably look like demons, but they could be pretty. And so you better watch out for pretty people too, because they might be trying to seduce you and drag you to hell. And honestly, I don't know how they do tell these stories with a straight face, but they're 100% bought in. And for many years, I was 100% bought in on that story, and I was terrified, and I was very afraid. They told me that Lucifer was also, a devil-like being, but also at the same time a really hot angel dude, and also like he could shapeshift, and he could like maybe come as like a lion, and you start to see all of the galactic information getting distorted, right? You have the lion iconography in the Bible, which is obviously referring to the Lyrans. Obviously, the DNA templates that are used for all humanoids originally stemmed from the Lyrans millions of years ago, so it's no wonder that we refer to godlike beings as a lion-like being. It kind of makes sense in its own way. There's no real reason why suddenly the lion is associated with God and with the devil. That part never made sense to me either. And then another one of the distortions is calling the devil, or Lucifer, right? Luz means light in Latin, and calling the devil the morning star. That's one of the names in the Bible. They say it's the morning stars, like, was their name when God liked them. And the morning star is the planet Venus, and Venus is the home of Ra and one of the homes of the Hathors, and they're some of the most loving and incredible beings that have supported humanity and watched over us for so long. And so you start to see the distortions of where some of the things that were light and were meant to help and support us and connect with us were distorted and turned into bad, and like, don't go near them, don't talk to them. If someone comes to you and tells you that they're the morning star, then that means they're the devil, so that you'll run away from them. And, bless the hearts of all of these galactics who always have to make up new names for themselves when the old name gets corrupted. So even as a kid, I was like, this is very intriguing, but there's also so many things that don't make sense, but I wasn't allowed to ask any questions. And so I always accepted that the story of the fallen angels was just kind of bullshit that was made up to scare you and get you to do what they wanted you to do. And I believed that all the way until October of 2023, when I'm standing in my astral body on an Arcturian ship staring at 8 blue Arcturians who only have 3 fingers on each hand, and they're downloading all of this quantum information into me like I'm a battery, and I remembered the real story of the fallen angels. So I'm going to tell you that version. And it goes something like this. In a galaxy far, far away. Okay, all right. But seriously, in a different galaxy far, far away, when a soul chooses the universe that it would like to go to start its first self-aware incarnation, they move from the high etheric planes that are connected to all universes into a lower etheric plane that is associated with a specific universe. And within that specific universe, there are many different galaxies, and these galaxies are similar to what you might think of as schools. They each have a different tenor. They each have a different galactic song. They each have a different difficulty level. So when a soul is brand new, their guides will bring them to these high etheric planets inside of dwarf galaxies. A dwarf galaxy is exactly what it sounds like. It's a very small galaxy. There is a red dwarf galaxy that is our neighbor here to the Milky Way galaxy and the Andromeda galaxy. And in these dwarf galaxies will be many high frequency, high dimensional planets. These incarnations are so etheric, so angelic. It's almost like you just move from the etheric realm onto a planet that is like the etheric realm. And the reason for this is because a brand new soul, if it were to be brought from the high etheric plane into a planet like Earth that is at the lowest dimensional plane, 3rd dimension, there would be soul trauma, extreme soul trauma. There would be soul tearing. I mean, it would be very, very difficult and traumatizing on the soul. And the purpose of us going through all of these incarnations is not to traumatize us. Even though all of us have experienced trauma, especially here on Earth, you're already at a very high skill level that qualifies you to be here, to experience and then to alchemize that trauma. But when a soul is brand new, they have none of those experiences. And so they start out their incarnation process in these dwarf galaxies on 12D planets. And most of these very early lifetimes, it's just like preschool. You take your child to school, the spirit guide is there with them, introducing them to other souls that they might have a resonance with, seeing who they connect to, who they're drawn to. And those other souls may have a little bit more experience, maybe 2 or 3 lifetimes under their belt on these 12D planets. They may have already befriended some other souls, And so the purpose is really your spirit guide kind of, bringing you into that preschool and introducing you to the other kids to see, who do you want to play with? Who do you have resonance with? Whose little group do you want to be a part of? And that's how that inner circle soul family is formed. The inner circle will typically have 3 to 5 souls. The most common amount that I see is 4. There will typically be 2 that will diverge into the divine feminine as their preferred frequency, and 2 that will diverge into the divine masculine as their preferred frequency. And so the group of 4 is highly balanced. But there can be 3 and there can sometimes be 5, and I've even come across one that was 6. But those are much more rare. And so you have these very high frequency incarnations, so gentle, so loving. I mean, the whole point of the lifetime and the experience, you don't even have to go through the birthing process. That doesn't come until way later. You literally walk from the etheric realm into the planetary realm. And your spiritual guide is there holding your hand the entire time. Once you've formed this inner circle soul family, you'll start to go to planets that might be 10D, 11D. You're still experiencing very high frequency, low density incarnations, but you're building and growing your skill level. And at the same time, as you start to develop relationships with other souls, you start to accumulate karma. Karma starts accumulating the moment that you are a self-aware soul until the moment that you ascend out of third density. But as you can imagine, when you are at such a high dimension, 10D, 11D, 12D, there isn't much to discontent you that creates a lot of friction or karma with other souls. But it will eventually accumulate, and over time, you start to descend. You start to literally experience what is called the fall through dimensional frequency. As you gain skill, as you accumulate karma, you move to more difficult planets that are in 7D, 8D, 9D. And of course, I'm sure you can imagine where I'm going with this. Over millions of years, you accumulate the skill level, but also the karmic load that allows you access to highly difficult planets that are at the bottom of the frequency fall, third dimension, and that's here on Earth. We were, for about 7,500 years, which is an incredibly short blink of an eye in the span of eternity, we were 3D, third dimension, third density. So all of these planets in these dwarf galaxies are third density, but they are 11 and 12D, 11th and 12th dimension. Then you start to move into more difficult. For example, you might move from that red dwarf galaxy as a brand new soul into the Andromeda galaxy, which has already gone through its descent through dimensions, and it's already on a majority, over 75% of the galaxy is in the midst of its ascension. And so if the dimension matches and there is a third density planet available, then a soul can move from the dwarf galaxy into Andromeda galaxy, for example, and then they would move into more difficult galaxies like the Milky Way. The Milky Way is known, honestly, for being difficult, for being somewhat of a war zone, especially the areas that we and our different galactic families inhabit. But this descent through dimensions that occurs in the earliest part of your third density incarnation process is why many of you feel that you have had angelic lifetimes, that you have been a Pleiadian already, so how can I be becoming a Pleiadian in the future? And really, time is neither here nor there. Everything is future, present, past, present, but there is a linear thread that could be followed through your incarnation process. And so you make this downward trajectory, this fall, all the way down to the bottommost dimension, which is third. And this descent is known in literature as the hero's journey. So if you look up storytelling, literature, the hero's journey, the hero goes on their journey and they make the descent. And during the descent, they have their trial, the trial by fire, the great difficulty of their life, the great quandary, the great problem, the great monster that they have to defeat, the bad boss that they have to overcome. That experience is when they find their power. That experience is when they literally become the hero. That is their experience when they decide who they are going to be. And then they make their ascent. You are the fallen angels. You are the one that has had that angelic, that Pleiadian, that high frequency, that high galactic lifetime incarnation experience. And you've also had some really traumatic, difficult war zone lifetimes as you have made your descent. I think this is why many spiritual teachers will often say, hell is already on earth. It's what you decide that you're going to live in. Are you going to create a hellish experience for yourself here? Or are you going to create the new earth, a new experience, a new frequency for yourself? It doesn't really surprise me that many people think that earth is a hellish place. You're at the bottom of the frequency fall. You're at the bottom of the barrel. This is where things can be the worst of the worst, all for the sake of you learning about yourself, but ultimately you choosing who you are going to be. In a world where you can be literally anything, you can be the villain, you can be the darkness, you can be self-serving, you can be awful to other human beings, you can be awful to the earth, you can be abusive, abusing the earth, abusing animals, abusing your relationships, abusing your power, abusing the power and privilege that you may have based on who you are in this current time-space society. You can be anything. The question was never, am I stuck in hell? Is this a hellish place? Is this the worst of the worst? The answer is it absolutely can be. It absolutely can be. But the much more helpful question is, who are you going to choose to be in spite of those options? In spite of hell being an option during your experience? Who are you going to choose to be? Because what you create and what you experience in your reality has nothing to do with the external and everything to do with who you already are inside. And I know when things are going sideways and to hell, literally, in your life, and it feels like things are crashing and burning and not working out, and there's a great unhappiness, or there's a great loneliness, or there's a great void, or there's a job that you can't fucking stand, or there is a feeling of being completely lost from your purpose, completely disconnected from your star family, from your spirit family, and what you came here to do. In spite of all that, who do you choose to be? Who are you going to choose to be? Because everything in your external is responding to your internal. First, foremost, always. I know you don't have it all figured out because I don't even have it all figured out. Not every area of my life is perfect. There are so many areas of my life that I'm like, I know I'm creating that shit show. I just don't know how to fix it. And it's okay. It's okay for you to learn in this lifetime. It's okay for you to be figuring it out. It's okay for you to be on the hero's journey. It's okay for you to be searching the depths of your soul, trying to figure out, who do I want to be, before you make your ascent. I think for many of us, without this understanding of the fall that we have experienced, the descent through frequency, many of us struggle with embracing and accepting that we are in an ascension and that we're part of an ascension. that we deserve to ascend. Because that little piece of your soul cosmic memory hasn't come back yet. You've already been through hell. If you want to go somewhere else, you can. If you want to ascend back through the frequencies, you absolutely can. Ascension is a choice. And you can stay down here as long as you want. But something tells me that you came specifically to this lifetime to remember who the fuck you are, to remember your divine soul cosmic memory, to activate it, to illuminate your purpose, and to ascend. The ascension, once you choose it for yourself, once you accept that it's possible for you, once you believe it, and you say, that's what I want, even if I just taste it in this lifetime and decide to do something different next. That is when your divine resurrection begins. As I'm standing in my astral body on this Arcturian ship, the Lightbringer, receiving all of this and 8 more hours worth of quantum information, my body feels like it's electric. And yet every part of me, every single piece that they downloaded through me, I was like, I know this, I know this, I know this. There's a part of you that listened to me tell that story and you're like, I know that. I definitely know that. That's because it's your memory. It's already encoded in you. All that's happening is that it's being reactivated, remembered. And I feel these 8 Arcturians looking at me with so much love. And this final image downloads. And it was almost like I was viscerally experiencing it and watching it at the same time. The ship is gone. And all I see is water everywhere. And there's this being in front of me. This being that is radiating light, this pure white light. And they have these beautiful angelic wings, but they're underwater and it's like they're struggling. And I see them start to notice that there's light above. About 30 or 40 feet above our heads, there's light. And they start to swim towards the light. And they're swimming and they're gaining traction and they're going faster. And all of a sudden they break the surface of the water. And they can breathe again. And then they start to move out of the water. And they start to move through the air, through the clouds, through the atmosphere. And it's like there's this energy propelling them faster and faster. It's like they went from being a humanoid angelic being to being a comet. And they're moving so fast and there's so much light. And it's like this cataclysm when they breach the atmosphere. And I see this angelic being floating in outer space above this water planet. And it's like they can breathe for the first time. And they're looking around. And I feel all of that divine cosmic memory coming online. And I hear these 8 blue Arcturians say, welcome to your divine resurrection. I spent more time with them on that ship, my home ship, the Lightbringer. I can't remember anything about what we said. I can only really remember what downloaded through me. I think it was simple things. Like, was that you in my childhood, moving through my home? And they're like, yes, that was us. Now, for almost 5 months later, I'm on that ship every day. I feel in some ways that part of me is there 24/7 and part of me is here. That connection is restored completely. As much as I had worked with galactics over the last 3-4 years, I still hadn't remembered my home ship. In fact, I hadn't even known to ask. It's almost like you're always surrounded by people who know a lot more than you do, but they never tell you anything unless you're ready to hear it. And so much of awakening is just allowing the puzzle pieces to unfold themselves without trying to control it, without overanalyzing it, which I am absolutely prone to do, without trying to force it, without trying to be ahead or speed up or catch up. There's nowhere else that you're supposed to be. You're always at the intersection of free will and destiny at any given moment. Divine perfection is the undertone of everything in the universe. But if you're ready for more, I think all that you really need to do is just set the intention. I'm ready for my divine resurrection. I'm ready to remember the truth of who I am. Beautiful beings of divine light, thank you so much for listening. I hope that you will share this episode with a friend, someone that you think it might resonate with. And you already know that I will see you on the next one.